Hey, you here for the open house?
Yes, been looking for a house for a long time.
Awesome, come on in. Watch your step.
Thank you.
So, what'd you think of the house?
I loved it. Really interested in putting in an offer. What do you got to list it for?
Awesome. So we're currently asking $400,000 for this.
Well, I love the house. In fact, I'd like to offer you $425,000.
$425,000? We're not taking anything less than $450,000.
Has this ever happened to you? Hopefully not, because that's definitely assault. But that's how it can feel in the real estate market right now. So that begs the question, how do you make an offer that works for both you and the seller? Take me, for example. I just bought a house for over asking. So how did I make the deal work for both me and the seller?
So in today's video, we're going to be going through a couple of examples, some tips, and some creative ways how you can make a great offer for the buyer, but also that incentivizes and helps the seller.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting. You'll spend it and be broke again.
All right, guys, here's one way you can make an offer work for both you and the seller if you're dealing with a seller that's actually reasonable.
Hey, so how'd you like the house?
I loved it. I'd really like to put in an offer. What do you have it listed at?
So we currently have this one listed at $400,000.
Okay. I think I can do that. In fact, I'm willing to offer $425,000.
Okay.
But I would need a seller concession of about $25,000 back.
I could do that.
Okay, great.
Good doing business with you.
Yeah. All right, guys. And right here, you may be thinking that, oh, you're offering $25,000 over, but you're asking for a $25,000 concession. Isn't that the same thing as offering just at asking? No, it is so much more beneficial towards me because a seller concession allows me to put more money down up front. It's covering a lot of my closing costs, and it completely changes what I actually qualify for, how much home I'm able to qualify for. This is how I got this house, is I asked for a seller concession. So whatever you're currently pre-approved for, you may actually be able to afford a much more expensive house if you're able to negotiate in a seller concession.
And that oftentimes works for me, the seller, because when people go into the due diligence, they oftentimes want to renegotiate again. If on the front end, I've already given them a leg or already helped them out by giving them that concession, oftentimes they're willing to work back with me and just leave it as that.
Yeah.
And then we can get the price I want to sell the house or better, and he can get the concession he needs.
Yeah. There's not a huge financial benefit to the seller in this case, but it's just a way to get your whole deal taken care of. Exactly. And both of us want this to be done as quick as possible.
Exactly. Hey man, I found this house I really like. I really need you to come out here and do a home inspection as soon as possible. You think you can be out here as soon as tomorrow?
I'm already here.
So this is where it's such a huge asset to have a relationship built and know an inspector that can be there as soon as you need them to be there. Him being here is that next day or right now, I can go to the seller and say, hey, I really want to lower my due diligence period so we can get this deal closed up sooner and less time for negotiation and inspections and all of that. Because he can do that, I'm able to go with an aggressive offer.
All right, guys, another great way to make your offer more appealing to the seller and still work for you is if you're able to somehow find a way to establish a good relationship with a lender, or maybe you can get somebody to vouch for you. That way you can shorten your financial contingency period and your offer appears that much more aggressive. Now, it's not really having a bearing on you. You're still getting your lending handled and everything, but they see it as less of a time for something to go wrong. So what do you think, Ryan? You think I can get approved?
We've done a lot of dealings together, so definitely we can make this happen.
Great.
So nowadays, a lot of people are having to go to the top end of their budget to be able to afford a house. With that, a lot of people are wanting to add what's called an appraisal clause or an appraisal contingency. All this is saying is if an appraisal comes back on a home and it is lower than what you offered, your offer now drops to that point. Sellers obviously don't like that because they don't want to lose money. So if you go over, they want to say it's not my fault. You want the house that bad, you pay for the difference. But in this case, our tip is if you know your comps and you really are confident in what you're comparing other houses to be valued at, and you think yours is right on the money, you can go and say, I don't need an appraisal contingency. I'm willing to go to that mark because I know my appraisal is going to come in higher than my offer.
Yeah, so I love the house. I'm willing to go over asking and everything. Awesome. So how about we make this thing happen?
My only hesitation is I haven't found a property or a house for myself or even an apartment that I can get. So I'm going to need, nobody wants to work with me, but I need to stay longer.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely be willing to give you some extra time to move out and everything if we can make this happen. Or if you really think that you'll be staying here for a while, I'd be willing to go into like a rent back agreement where, you know, you stay in the house for a little bit of rent.
Yeah.
So maybe we can kind of work that in if we're able to get this house under contract and get this going.
Definitely, yeah. Let's do that. Let's make it happen.
Great. All right, guys. So right here is something that a lot of people don't know about, and it's something called a rent back agreement. Now, off the bat, you could just offer them a few extra days if they're like in the process of moving out. You don't have to charge them any money. You don't have to be all, a stickler for that. But if they're really like, I'm going to be here a couple more months, and you really want to get this house under contract before someone else swoops in, you can offer them something called a rent back agreement. There's a few different names for it, but it's where they're able to stay in the house.
Mm-hmm. I actually recently was working with a seller that they needed to stay because their child was trying to finish school.
Mm-hmm.
So they just really couldn't move. And so my offer to them was to stay until they graduated and just rent for me at a lower cost if they were willing to sell it to me or work with me on the price.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, but it's still a real life example of that offer.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I'm willing to offer you $420,000 for home, and I'm actually going to throw in a $10,000 earnest money deposit.
Awesome.
All right.
These bills are getting bigger and bigger.
All right, guys. So an earnest money deposit is a great way to show a seller that you're more serious. They're more likely to take your offer seriously. Now, it's no really skin off my back because if this deal falls through, I get that money back. And if it does go through, it just gets applied to my closing. So it doesn't really hurt me whatsoever, and there's not too much risk involved.
And me as a seller, I'm more willing to take them serious the higher the deposit is. Again, it's refundable, so he can get the money back. But the higher that number is, I'm like, okay, they're going to be able to close because they already have the money. They're showing it up front, and they're taking this deal really serious. And if they really want to get me going, they'll make it non-refundable just in case they back out. Then I know I still get a piece of the pie, even if they don't close on the deal with me.
But that is not something that we would personally do ourselves. Making your earnest money deposit non-refundable is definitely a risk. So unless you're very confident that you're going to make this house work some way or another, then that's really a pretty extreme measure to go to.
Right, because you also are doing this to show you're serious, but once you get into due diligence and have an inspection, you never know what's going to come up. Maybe it's horrible structure and you're going to lose your deposit. So we always recommend, which is pretty standard practice, to keep it refundable. Hey Taylor, what do you think of that house?
Hey, I like the house, but I'm nervous about offering at the top end of my budget right off the bat.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I would recommend we do an escalation clause. You know what that is?
No, what's that?
Okay, so basically an escalation clause is if you want to put in an offer, obviously you want to go a little bit lower than the top end of your budget, and then someone were to swoop in last minute and put in an offer just above yours, the escalation clause would kick in and basically escalate your price or what you want to buy it for just past theirs. You put in how much more you want to go over and up to what point. What do you think about that?
Okay, that sounds perfect. In that case, let's start at $380,000 and include an escalation clause saying we're willing to beat any offer by $1,000 up to $420,000.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I'll write it up right now and send it over.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thanks, Taylor.
All right, guys. So hopefully you got some good advice from this video. I know that it can be really stressful and a long, drawn-out process to buy a home.
Yeah.
It took me 6 months to get this one. All right, so I completely understand the frustration. But if you implement some of these tips and get a bit creative yourself, there's a million ways to get creative in real estate. You just have to think of it, make something work for you, and it's also attractive to a seller, okay? So let us know if you have any ways that you like to get creative with your house offer or ways you've heard of that have worked for people.
Yeah, and like we said, we're always trying to help teach you guys what we've learned, but we also want to learn from you guys. So just like Taylor said, any creative idea you've used or heard of, let us know in the comments. We're looking forward to reading all of those and commenting on all of those personally. We're looking forward to hearing you guys, interacting with you guys. And as always, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share with a friend, and we'll see you next week.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting, you'll spend it and be broke again.